like to take this opportunity to examine an area in which we can take positive action. As you have noticed, the theme of the luncheon is second chances and moving forward, voting and other opportunities for ex-felons. Let us welcome Nancy O'Byrne.
Compassion in Action started about 4 or 5 years ago after a group of us read the book, The New Jim Crow. Is anybody familiar with that book?
Yes.
Good, good. Written by Michelle Alexander, and talks about mass incarceration, how we've gotten here, and what we need to do to get out of it. We just keep putting more and more people into prison. So we read that book and decided, well, we can't just leave it at that. We've got to do something. And really kind of exploring all the different areas of criminal justice reform, prison reform, those sorts of things. So we've gone into mental health. We've gone into a lot of areas that feed this mass incarceration issue that we face, not just in Florida, but in our country. How many are aware that we have a juvenile detention center here in St. Augustine? Good, that's good. It's actually called the St. John's Youth Academy, which is a little deceptive, but it's because it comes under the school district. They go to high school in that juvenile detention center. They go every day, and they are students. But there was a dearth of a lack of other programs for them. And so Compassion at St. Augustine, Compassion in Action, many other people interested in trying to help these boys decided they needed to start some programs in there, and we have an executive director of that facility that allows people from the community to come in and do programs with the boys. Now that's very rare, very rare. So we have brought over 30 programs to that facility. And just one of them is Alternatives to Violence project, AVP. That was actually started by the Quakers in 1975. So myself and 2 other facilitators have gone in and put on this Alternatives to Violence workshop with the boys. And there's a basic level, a whole weekend, 15 hours, and then there's an advanced level, another weekend, 15 hours that they put in. And then the final level is teaching them to become facilitators. But here's the issue. Most of them go back home to the very environment that produced them. And so now we really need to look at helping them transition, helping them re-enter, helping them find work, helping them find meaning in life out there. We looked at a fantastic program up in Jacksonville, Duval County called Operation New Hope. Anybody hear of that program? Okay, a couple of you. All right. That program was started under President Bush, the second President Bush, and it was one of those faith-based partnerships, and it has been in existence now for about 15 years, and it is a stellar, nationally recognized program right in Duval County. And what it does is it forms partnerships with businesses in Duval County that will hire these people who go through that program and get the skills, get the training, they get drug rehab or mental health counseling, whatever they need, and the people of that program follow them for a whole year. Of course, there's 2 things we need, and one of them is money. You guessed it, always, 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 always. So we're looking for funding. Of course, we're looking for it from the city, the county, the state, the federal government. There are some programs now, and please encourage your legislators to vote for this First Step Act that is up. Hopefully it'll be brought to the floor for a vote, but there's enough bipartisan support for it to get it passed. And so I thank you for your attention. I'm excited about this program. You'll be hearing more about it as we go along. It's not ready yet. It takes a long time to get stakeholders to the table and get them all to agree that this is what we need to do, but we're getting there. We're getting there. So thank you and enjoy your lunch.
And so the very first day I parked my car, I get out of the car and I'm approached by a gentleman who wanted to know what I was doing there. And I told him I was registering voters, and I asked him if he was registered. He said, no, I'm not. I said, well, would you like to? He said, I can't. I said, why not? He said, I'm a felon. So we talked for a half hour, and I just thought, you know, this isn't right. This gentleman he'd done something wrong. And look, we were all young and stupid once, and we made a mistake, right? And some of us didn't get caught like I did, okay? But anyway, I thought he's paid his debt to society. He's a U.S. citizen. He ought to be able to vote. And so then I kept knocking on doors, and I kept running into these people over and over and over, and I met dozens of these folks. And I thought, man, when this election's over, I got to help. I got to do something. So I found a petition to get signatures to get the constitutional amendment on the ballot to restore voting rights. And I'd heard there was this group of women that were going to organize a women's march group here in St. Augustine down at the Shriners Club. So I kind of barged in and politely asked for 5 minutes to talk about it, figuring I could get more signatures in a big group like that than I could just getting a few here and there on the street corner. And sure enough, 54 people there, I got 29 signatures. I got 2 new NAACP members, and I got 2 more volunteers to do what I was doing. And I was off to the races. I just kept doing that over and over and over. And then I started, you know, I heard down in Flagler, there were 4 people that wanted to do what I was doing when I come down and talk to them. I said, sure. So I went down, I trained them on how to go about it. They promised me they would stand on every street corner in Flagler and get it done. And I think in Flagler they outdid us. They got more petitions signed down there than we did up here in St. John's. But I often wondered as I was doing this, is there anybody else in Florida doing this? And sure enough, I went to a convention, the FRRC convention in August of 17. There were about 400 people there, and 20 or 30 people up here I knew weren't down there, and I figured these other people that were down there probably had the same experience. There were a lot of people they knew back home that weren't there either. So I figured there must have been at least 4,000 or 5,000 people like me across Florida who were doing this. What my next 2 years are going to be is finding these folks and getting them registered to vote if they want to register. And I've already talked to St. Augustine Records. I'm going to run an article. I'm going to work with the churches, as many as I can get, to talk about it on Sundays. And I've already had a couple dozen people sign up to help me.
I was sentenced to 10 years. I did 8.5 on 10. And if you want to see a little bit about just how messed up the system is, I was served a 10-year mandatory sentence. But I'm not sure if it's because of the relations my family had or knew in the system or what, but I did 8.5 years. But I know there are many people out there that are doing the full 10. And I really got into fitness, and I got into yoga while I was in there. I had an injury from working out and started training. Just started working out, started being positive in my own mind. And with each accomplishment that I made in the asana practice, which asana is a posture, a pose, I actually started getting more belief in myself, I signed up for these courses about, I think it was in 2016, to become a certified personal trainer, and I passed that. And then in, I think around 2014, I actually really worked hard to get like yoga pushed into the prison system, just because I've seen what it did for me. And I started teaching classes, and like the administration finally allowed it. And you know, we taught at one camp. It was so violent, and by a year after doing this, I would say like most of the stabbings on the compound, most of the brutality, a lot of that was cut back and minimized. And from the 26 people it started out with, You know, there were 3 teachers, myself, this guy named Asa Todd, and a guy named Lane. And towards the end, before I got transferred, there were 750 people signed up on the compound. You know, I think out here on the streets, it starts with spreading awareness, not just out here, but also in there, that there are people that really do care. Because in there, it's a hopeless feeling. And these guys that have had nothing, they don't understand anything, but maybe the neighborhood they grew up in, they've never been outside that neighborhood, gang violence, this and that. They don't feel like anyone cares. And then when you get thrown into a system where it's very brutal, it's very, you know, rough, they take on that. And then when someone tries helping them, they don't believe you. They don't want your help because they feel like all the help they've gotten before is bull crap, or oh, you're just trying to get funding, or the state's just trying to get money for this. They don't really care about us.
Well, I'm here to bring you pretty dismal news. The entire system is broken. It's a disaster from start to finish. Every time you hear a politician talking about reform, talk to them. Make sure they know what they're talking about. They've been trying to pass criminal justice reform for years. And the problem, of course, is the legislature, who is primarily Republicans, and the governor, like Red Tide Rick, who acknowledged there was no criteria for pardons or any type of common sense response. When I started practicing law in 1973, the limit for grand theft was $100. A few years after that, it got raised to $300. It's still $300 to qualify for grand theft. Virtually anything. Bad checks is a felony. A felony is defined as a serious crime. And the reform needs to begin with the school system, make it work. Needs to continue with serious funding for the public defender system. The public defenders get badly treated. They get more than 90% of the criminal justice cases, and they have not nearly enough lawyers to do it. And you have to wonder, what is the partisan issue? What does it, being a Democrat or Republican, have to do with honest prosecution and honest defense? It's insane. Except no one in their right mind anymore is going to run as a Democrat because you won't get elected. You cannot get elected. The system of mandatory minimum sentences is broken. My position has always been that if you have enough confidence in a person who's been either appointed or elected a judge, you ought to have enough confidence in them to give them some discretion. The mandatory minimums give a judge no discretion. The system is divided up. A third-degree felony is maximum 5 years. Second-degree felony is maximum 15 years. First-degree felony is maximum 30 years. And then there's a first-degree punishable by life, which is punishable by life. Then there's a life felony, which is also punishable by life. Then there's a capital felony, which anymore is only murder. But sex cases have minimum mandatories. And sex cases, everybody cringes and thinks you're talking about some child being molested, which is terrible, of course, and they're horrible to defend, but they're not all true. If you get a jury summons, please don't ignore it. Please go. Because I can tell you, trying cases in St. Johns County, we're looking for somebody who's sane and reasonable The system needs a lot of work. Please don't turn your back on it. Please pay attention.